So the first one, Dr. Rob, I just put in answered so you can see it.
You
I
don't
re
have to, but okay,
Oh,
that's fine.
I don't think you can see them if I
Yeah, I
don't
can.
do
I see
that.
them all
Oh,
now.
you can
Since
all of
they
them? Oh,
redid Zoom, so yeah.
oh, excellent. Okay, then I won't after this one. I recently discovered my husband's porn addiction. After the past 20 years, he tried to stop on and off and always had a similar pattern of escalation in terms of the content he'd watch. He would start with watching women and men having sex and escalate to trans women and men having sex. He's in recovery, sober 2.5 months, and insists he is not interested in men or trans women in real life, but found it arousing at the time. Is it common in straight men who are addicted to porn? His CSAT says if there was no attraction to men in his youth, adolescence, then it is likely the excitement of watching something that's taboo. What are your thoughts? Thank you. This is a great question. We get a lot of people who are, are have questions about arousal template, and if they're watching that, what does that mean in real life? So
Hmm.
Dr. Rob, please expound on this.
Well, I have to use a not so nice word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's not that bad a word. But so I'm a gay guy. Although I have many years ago, I was married to a woman. I am pretty focused on being with my husband of 23 years. When I look down the street and see an attractive person, it's not going to be a woman. So let's say that I started watching a whole bunch of porn. I wouldn't be looking at breasts. Just not my thing. They might go by the screen. I might say, when I look at breasts, I think, oh, what would those look good in? I mean, that's where my head goes because so I'm not going to look at something that doesn't have some kind of resonance within me. So things that just don't attract me at all, I don't have any feelings about, I'm not going to look at. So sorry, ladies, I'd picture what you're wearing, but I'm not necessarily going to look at that because that's not my thing. So what I will say is that, and also want to add to that, some people think, oh, well, they were looking at that because they looked at a lot of porn. And when they stop looking at a lot of porn, they won't be interested in looking at that anymore. And that's not true. What porn does is it may awake or awaken or make conscious something that you weren't aware of before. I've certainly had men say, oh, there are some trans women. I never knew that turned me on before. But if it didn't, it wouldn't. So it doesn't mean you're necessarily walking around thinking, oh, I can't wait to be with a trans woman, for example. Nothing against you trans women. But I do know that it's part of my arousal. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. You can't say, oh, that is not so. I would disagree. I think I would disagree. I'm not sure exactly what. If there was attraction managers had probably the excitement of no. I don't think it's watching something taboo. I think it's that there's an attraction there. There are all kinds of things you can watch that are taboo that wouldn't really be interested in. Now, does he walk down the street and say, "I want to be that person, that person"? No. It- there are many things that interest us that we're curious about that we don't act out in real life. And so, and I don't want to give examples of that because I can't think of any, but Tammy will think of some things that you see and you think, oh, that's interesting, or I didn't know, but you're not necessarily want to want and do it. You're just interested in watching it because you enjoy it. Um, I'll give a simple example. I've been watching, there's a new season of the Great British Baking Show, which I've been watching, and I watch these people like create these amazing things. I look and say, I wish I could do that, or I want a piece of that. But I don't think, well, I'm going to sit at home and make cakes as much as I wish I would. They look like the ones that lose. So all I'm saying is that two things. There may be something that you see online that you weren't aware, wasn't conscious that, wow, I'm interested in that. And you see it and you go, oh, wow, I am excited by that. That means it was always there. It doesn't mean you're going to pursue it in real life, but it does mean it turns you on, whether you knew it did or you didn't. And that doesn't go away. And I don't really, I think things can escalate out of the excitement of watching something taboo, absolutely, but it's still something that turns you on. So I wouldn't move to, for example, I'll be a little explicit, if I might be interested in watching a man have sex or men having sex or whatever that is, but I wouldn't move to a whole bunch of women joining them, even though it might be taboo or whatever, because that's just not my thing. So basically, if it's your thing, it's your thing. You know it, you don't know it, but it's your thing. You act out in the world, you don't, doesn't matter. It's still your thing. Once it's there, it's there. So that's my response. Tammy, do you have thoughts or examples you could
Well,
give?
I'm going to ask you another question because, like, could you talk a little bit about the escalation and, like, I mean, and whether
Hmm.
this is porn or whatever, escalation is a pretty common thing. So, can you talk a little bit about escalation?
Well, escalation come in different forms. It can be in time. For example, I used to look for 30 minutes and now I look for an hour and a half, or times So I used to look just at home. Now I look at work, or I look on the way to work, or so the amount of time, the frequency is the word I was, those can certainly escalate. And then I think people can escalate from vanilla porn, which is basically watching a heterosexual couple, have sex, or maybe a homosexual couple, but that's what they're into. But escalation means, that they're doing kinkier things, that they've added something, whether it's an object, or maybe they're doing a little bit of, I don't know, younger people, maybe, so I'm 40 and I used to look at 35-year-olds. Now I'm really interested in looking at 20-year-olds. So things can escalate in terms of frequency, time, maybe adding people in, having more explicit images, whatever that is. But the bottom line is, I'm still only going to look at something that I'm interested in. I may look at it more. I may look at more extreme examples. Maybe I'm just looking, in your situation, at trans women and watching them undress or something. Then I start looking at trans women having sex. Then I start looking at trans women who are, whatever it is. So yes, the intensity of what I'm looking at can escalate, but it's not going to veer off into, oh, I like 23-year-olds, so I'm going to be interested in 11-year-olds. I mean, it doesn't escalate like that. So Tammy, I think you may have something in mind. I'm not sure if I'm
Well,
mentioning it.
no, that's all really helpful, but I think it's the nature of addiction, and whether it's in sex and porn, or substances, or whatever, it takes more, or it takes a higher intensity, or whatever.
Right,
Like, this doesn't work anymore, so I need to up,
right.
more often, longer of a duration of time, more taboo.
When I
You
might
know,
get caught.
yeah, yes, I was gonna say high
Hmm.
risk. Yeah, yeah. So all of those things. So I think it's important to consider, the escalation. But and I'm like, I know I'm like Debbie Downer, but here's the deal. He's been in recovery for 2.5 months. No, he's been
Oh,
abstinent, sober for 2.5 months. And I
maybe,
hear you saying sober. Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But and if he's not doing non-porn porn, like TikTok, and all of the um all of the things that are not porn but are exciting, and keep that dopamine going. The other, so looking holistically, is he using cannabis, or drinking, or using food, or like all of those things, need to be identified. Now I
Figure.
hear he's got a CSAT, and that's fantastic. So hopefully the CSAT's doing a really great job of identifying all of the problematic behaviors, and working on having a relapse prevention plan, etc. But I just, for you, partner, like I mentioned at the beginning of the time too, is we have a betrayed partner work group starting this week, Wednesday. That would be really great for you to get information and support for, what are healthy boundaries for me. If you don't have a qualified professional supporting you, really important for you to have that as well. We've got lots of resources for you. Again, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. Let me know what you need, and I'll do my best to help you get
I
that
wanted to add
information.
two things to that
Please.
question, because I took another look at it. To me, escalation would be, is a different way of thinking about it. I saw some people having sex with trans people. I didn't know that turned me on. I started watching trans people. That turned me on. I started connecting with live sex workers online who were trans, and we were like doing it back and forth, and I was paying them. Now, when you're out of town, I'm going out and I'm looking for a trans. So it may escalate, not in terms necessarily into more what's the word, illegal, or that kind of problematic behavior, but it certainly can escalate in terms of, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about it, I'm touching it, I'm out there doing it. Um, the other thing is, I just wanted to comment. You said, is it common for straight men who are addicted to porn? Um, this is sorry, this is common in gay men who are addicted to porn. This is common in women who are addicted to porn. All kinds of people escalate into different behaviors. Um, yeah. So, and I don't agree if there's no attraction. I do agree there's no attraction to men in his youth or adolescence, that he may have never thought about it, or it never occurred to him, or he didn't want to have sex with a friend. But that doesn't mean you don't see it and think, oh, wow, that's interesting. So, anyway, Tammy, let's move on. Great question.
Okay. So I'm the betrayed spouse. D-Day was 15 months ago. Why do men with sex addiction have delusions, and how is this problem fixed? My husband has been sober, according to him, and passed a polygraph since D-Day, but he is still prone to delusional thinking. It is very unsettling to witness.
So, Tammy, I'm wrong. I thought I was right, but I'm wrong. I can't
Okay.
read it unless it's
I
advanced.
I
I don't know
thought
why.
that. I don't think I was
I
like, I don't. So
apologize.
now it's in
Okay, great.
the answered. And while you're reading,
I see.
it's not just people with sex addiction have all addicts have delusional thinking, like and my big thing is he says he's been sober, and if you've been around at all, all the research that I've shared about polygraphs, they measure stress, not truthfulness, so kind of irrelevant, but for your purposes, he says, what are his actions showing you? You're saying, I'm unsettled, I'm dysregulated because he's so prone to delusional thinking. So to me, his actions are not showing you that he's doing the recovery work, because it isn't just, oh, I stopped and now I'm going to be all, wonderful. Delusional thinking is denial is I lie to myself first and then I lie to everyone else. And the fantastical thinking, even the fantasy, that accompanies, particularly, with porn and sex addiction, can be very difficult, not impossible if we're doing our recovery work, but if he is, if you guys did a polygraph and he's just not acting out, that's merely abstinence. That is not any kind of recovery or sobriety. So I would really want to know what his recovery plan is. How often is he going to 12 steps? Hopefully multiple times a week. He's working with a sponsor. He's working with a qualified therapist. He's doing our drop-in groups. He's been doing 15 months. Hopefully he did sex addiction parts 1, 2, and 3 for the work groups. I mean, the more he's doing, the more you're going to see his actions be able to change. But yeah, yes, it can, based on what work we are willing to do, but it won't just change by just stopping the behaviors that we were never supposed to do in the first place. So,
Well, I have a question, Tammy. What is delusional thinking? What does that person mean by that, do you think?
there's so many things, to me is like, that I'm really, I start with the very basic. I'm really in recovery because I'm not, doing any of those, but I'm lying. Like, you get the in the out of the doghouse, I'm saying I took out the trash and I don't, so I'm doing all of these things. When a partner is that dysregulated, to me, there's a disconnect between what the actions are showing and what, the partner is experiencing. So, and
But then it's unsettling to witness. What do you think that means? Because if I had delusional thinking, I don't know that you would see it. So again, I want to answer this in the best way. I can give just my response as I think about it, but I don't. If I can be more accurate, I want you to help me, because it's a kind of vague question, if you will. I
yeah,
can jump in.
but
Go ahead.
well, to me, a delusional thought is, like, when any addict goes, I'm doing great in recovery, I'm never going to act out again.
Oh, there's
That's
that.
that's very scary and dysregulating for partners. They should not believe that, so that to me is just one, but there's lots of, like, I don't need to go to those 12-step meetings. I don't need to see my therapist anymore. Like, I got this. That's delusional thinking. So there are some really concrete examples, in from a recovery standpoint. And then, like that I'm going to win Miss Universe, that would be really massively delusional thinking,
I'll vote.
yeah. Yeah, but it's like one of those things where, like, it can be
All
on
right.
any level of, of I'm a great parent, and I don't show up for, my
My
kids
spouse.
anything, yeah, or
Right.
my spouse, yeah. So
I
those are
I
some
guess,
thoughts.
thank you, because I really appreciate the feedback. One of the things that I think about is, well, I can just go back to doing a little bit of this. I
Yes,
know
that's a
that was a
great
problem,
delusional
but
thought.
now that I've been sober for a while, I don't think that's going to be a problem with me. Who did you check it out with? Your therapist, your sponsor? No, I just decided that it wouldn't be. That kind of thinking is simply, we're addicts. We make up things. We tell ourselves things that make what we, pardon me, we tell ourselves things that make what we want to do okay. Even though it's not okay. This is the nature of being an addict. You talk yourself into it not being a problem, and then you figure it won't affect anyone else or whatever. So, but on the other hand, thinking about acting out as an addict in early recovery, that's not a delusion. That's what we do. I have a bad day and I think, oh, it'd be great to, that is delusional thinking, but to me, that's just addict thinking. So, in any case, it's a great question. I'm not fully sure I understand it, but I'm open to, let's keep rolling because there are lots of people with questions.
Okay. And the next one, I'm going to read it, but I'm going to go pull some
Go ahead,
resources
go
because
ahead,
I've got
go
some
for it,
great
girl.
resources. So I'm the betrayed addict. Discovery and staggered disclosure occurred a little over 3 years ago. The last 3 years have been a struggle for us to heal. Sex addiction was realized recently, and I'm looking to start a 12-step program. Do I just join a program to get started? Thank you. My colleague, our colleague Scott and I did a webinar on the 12-step programs, which is a really good primer on like how to navigate, because it's different, like with alcohol, you go to AA, easy. But with the S groups, there's a whole bunch of them. So we did a really, I think we did a good job of, going through how to navigate this and, unpacking a lot of the myths with that separately. And I'm gonna pull the information. We have a work group that starts November 2nd for Sex Addiction 101. For your partner, we have a betrayed partner work group that starts Wednesday. Those two things are psychoeducation. Dr. Rob created the curriculum, but these are not therapy, they're not treatment, but they are really good at getting those foundational pieces that you don't get in therapy. Many good therapists recommend them for their clients because they see them make, much more progress. Separately, we've got webinars. You're on one. Excellent. These are recorded. There's hundreds of hours of these things. And podcasts. Dr. Rob has Sex, Love, and Addiction. I haven't checked the stats lately. I'm sure it's got over 1.4 million downloads
I
on
want
it.
to know. Yeah.
Third next is drop-in groups. There's separate drop-in groups for each of you, on our platform. So I'm going to go pull some links. Dr. Rob can tag in on any of those things.
Well, I will. I have to say what I really want to reinforce what Tammy said, which is I think it's really important to learn this. We have the emotional piece we have to learn, we have the relationship piece we have to learn, but we also have brains. And one of the things we do in residential treatment, one of the things I recommend people do in therapy is take a damn course. Excuse my language. It's like you'll learn things, you'll work in a workbook, there'll be other people around. So if you're just new to it, by all means, jump in with both feet and learn. For your spouse to go to a betrayed group to understand what happens to him or her, what it does to them, how betrayal affects your day-to-day life when you think you're just crazy and you don't understand why you're not sleeping or why I love you and hate you on the same day, or there are things that spouses can learn about how to tolerate what they're being through. So education is a really big piece, and I think what Tammy is talking about, like the podcast. We have over 1.5 million people who listen to it. There's a reason they want to learn. As far as joining 12-step, what are you waiting for? If you've heard of them and you've heard they're a good thing, what are you waiting for? And if I were in a relationship with you, I would say anything that you were doing that was very clear to me that was helpful to people would be great. You just discovered the problem. Okay, there's groups for that. Why wait? By the way, there's hundreds of them. So if you don't like this group, you go to that group. If you don't like this group on that night, you try it on a different night. It is your opportunity to have an education in something you probably never wanted to be educated about, which is what are the resources. But I will tell you this, and I tell you with 30 years of experience without question, if there's nothing I say that's more right than this, you can't do it alone. You cannot do this alone. I can build a business alone. I can, I don't know if I can cook those cakes like I said I could, but there's all kinds of things I can. A lot of the men I work with, they can achieve. They can do almost anything they want in life. Not all of them, but many of them work very, very hard and get many of the things they want. So they take that approach to this, which is, well, if I work hard enough, if I figure it out, if I read enough books, that's not how this works. This is a disorder of disconnection. Disconnecting from your feelings, disconnecting from the people you love, and even being disconnected from your acting out, because once you leave it, you kind of push it away. So if it is a disorder of intimacy and disconnection, the only way you're going to heal is with connection and relationship intimacy. And that doesn't mean sex. That means growing relationships with people who have your same problem. Why do you need to go to the groups? Well, there's no other place that I know where you can, other than the free groups we offer, where you can sit and talk to someone who has the same problem. And I got to tell you, running a treatment program, and I work with men year after year after year, when I sit in a room with them, it doesn't matter who got an Oscar. I live in Hollywood, right? It doesn't matter who got an Oscar and made a famous movie. It doesn't matter to me who is a politician. It doesn't matter to me who sweeps the garbage. What matters to me and to them is they share this common problem. And so that's the other piece I'd add to you is, number one, you can't do it alone. And number two, it's best to do some of this work with people who actually, whether that's meetings or the educational week group, we do it with people who have the same problem. It takes your shame right out the window when you hear somebody else is struggling with this. What I would say to you is, don't wait. It's here in California, it's 5:30. You're probably in a group. There's probably groups at midnight. So, yes, join a group, join multiple groups, go multiple times. You're in a learning process. You cannot do enough about this. Plus, you need to understand the beginning, which is, what is sobriety? How do I stop? What am I stopping? What do I tell my spouse? What do I not tell my spouse? All of those things. But I'll tell you what, I'm really glad you found your way here. I'm really glad you realized what the problem was, because I see people go decades and they just don't know how to deal with this. They hate themselves. They can't stop. So good for you for being here. Yeah, I'm done.
Well, and the only other, I like, and your partner too, you getting help for you, absolutely. And again, for partners to get support and not be alone in all of this, it's so important. We have an empowered women's retreat, and you know what? We don't talk about the addict. We talk about healing for the partners. So
Mhm.
this is really important, that they have separate, very different, help. So the next question, Dr. Rob, it's been a month, 1 month since betrayal between my wife and I was revealed, and all acting out has stopped. We're in a better place than we were, of course. What are some good exercises, games that we can play, do that are safe, fun, and helpful for healing and reconnecting?
Okay. So you're someone else who's very, very new to this. And I think a lot of people think, oh, as Tammy said, I got this. I haven't acted out in a while. I'm headed in the right direction. Great. Um, I will tell you that it's very typical for someone to get into a crisis. Like, let's say they were they were drinking and driving and they got a DUI, or they hit a tree with their car. And they said, oh my God, I'm never going to drink again. I completely understand. I have no desire to drink. And then within a few weeks, they're drinking again because a crisis, I'm not saying your situation, but a crisis like I've separated from my spouse is only going to take you so long before it all comes back. So in 2 months, I would be concerned about your being on what we call a pink cloud, if you've not really had enough time under your belt. Should you talk about your past, what you're watching? No, and yes. Don't talk about it at home. Don't answer those questions when your spouse is sitting at home and they don't have any support, and they don't know what to do and they don't know how to go forward. And make sure that when we disclose anything, as much as a spouse wants to hear it, we make sure they're in a safe environment, that we're doing it with a therapist. Sometimes as an addict, we think, oh, they keep asking me this question. Maybe if I answer it, they will feel better. And they will say, I'll feel better if you just tell me this. They're safety seeking. They're hoping that maybe this is all there is, or if I find that out, I'll feel better. Or the truth is, the more questions you have, the more questions you have. And so, and for spouses too, I think asking questions all day long is not going to allow you to live your lives. You may have kids, you have jobs. Write your questions down, whenever they come up. Plan for, as a betrayed partner, for you to get into group, for you to get support, for you to know, look, you're disclosed this stuff. What are you going to do with it? You're going to need a place to go, just like the addicts who have, women or men, whoever you're with. Betrayed partners need their own place to go with other betrayed partners, so they don't feel like an idiot. Like, how could this happen to me? I should have seen it coming. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Well, trust me, when you sit in a room with 8 other or 15 other or 50 other women who it happened to too, and they're smart and they're attractive, and you start to think, oh, this is really nothing to do with me. So, but the answer is, what is my recommendation before official disclosure? Make sure that you're not acting
Wait,
out.
wait,
Go
I
ahead.
think you skipped questions. Cause I was like, why are
Oh,
we talking about disclosure? It's been a month since the betrayal between my wife and
oh,
I
okay.
was
Sorry.
revealed, and all acting out has stopped. I kept going like, where are
Okay.
we talking about disclosure? We're in
Oh,
a
well,
better place
they're
than we
very
were, of
similar. That's why.
course. What are
Uh-huh.
some good exercises, games that we can play, do that are safe, fun, and helpful? Okay, so we'll all of
Why don't
what
you
he just said
start
for the
with
next
that?
question. Okay, yeah,
They
because I
apply
got
here
some
too. That's
real,
why.
well, yeah, I got some really, like, I've got some scary feelings with this. We're in a better place, of course. Like after a month, I'm sorry, with all due respect, like I'm terrified for the two of you because I don't hear, and I've been going to 12 step, all of those things that I just put in the chat, like I'm signed up for sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101. My partner's doing the online work group for partners. I'm seeing my qualified therapist. I've been going to, 5 12 step meetings a week, in the month. I have been in recovery for decades. I will not tell you that, like that's all behind us. and let's just like this feels like, I told you we're good. Now we're going to just run out and have fun. We want to do some fun things. And I'm thinking, your wife, I can only imagine, like, after a month, I cannot believe that she isn't going, I am shell shocked at what I've learned. And I'm not ready to just magically put this in a closet and pretend like everything's all better. We typically hear, it's been a month and I am, I can hardly move. I'm so hurt by what the behavior is. So this feels like a really big emotional disconnect, for the two of you. If you're going like, oh, you know, I've told, she knows, we're all good and we're going to go have
Right.
fun now. And, let's just skip over all of the stuff, the acting out, whatever form it takes. And we're talking sex and porn addiction here, sometimes co-occurring with chemicals, but that's a maladaptive coping mechanism. That is a symptom. It feels like it's the problem. And if you just stop that, then we're going to be magically better. Not true. We have an expert residential treatment program, 14, 21, or 28-day length of stay, not just to stop the problematic behaviors, but address the underlying issues. So clients are not just relapsing or switching to another form of acting out. So like this feels like you guys are skipping all of the work and just going like, you know, I went to ICU yesterday and now I want to go, run a marathon. Not happening. So slow everything down. I'm glad you're here. And I'm not like, I am so pro healing. I am so pro, we all are. We want healthy attachment and connection. But if your partner is not going, I can't believe you did that. I can't, what happened? How did this happen? How did I not see it? All of those things. And if you're just going like, well, let's skip to the fun part now and not addressing, the stuff that you need to, this is just going to keep happening, again, or come out in a different way. So slow everything down, lean into all of those resources, lots of free and low cost, resources, but like that we're all okay. We're doing better, of course. That is not the typical couple after a month from discovery. So thoughts?
Well, I'm going to agree to disagree just a little bit because I agree to
Okay,
you that
please.
75% of the people come in and the spouse is devastated and they don't want to talk to you and they're putting you in another room. But there are some situations where a spouse doesn't want to move away from you. They want the
Mm.
bad to go away, but they see that you said you love me, you said you care about me, you said you'll never do this again. I understand. I want to work toward our feeling better about each other. That's a spouse who may be protecting themselves from being completely overwhelmed by what's happened. And so for them to
Fair.
want, and there are couples that are so, the word I would use is a mesh, but they're so closely wound in each other that it's harder, it's terrifying or overwhelming the idea that we'd actually come apart and really have to look at each other. Because if you really separated emotionally and physically, perhaps, and your spouse had to take a look at you and what's happened, I don't think it would be fun and games. So I, what I think is, I think Tammy said this, it feels like a bit of a pink cloud. It feels like I have this image of you walking on glass and you're going to fall right through because what you have done is you have not built a foundation for you to heal. And without a foundation, you can say all you want, you can hope all you want, your spouse can believe that this is the answer, whatever. But trust me, there is a process. Tammy and I have watched it. This is what hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, or if not more. And there will have to be a meaningful separation emotionally between your two. Your spouse will have to sit back and say, I can't believe this happened to me. How could you do this to me? This is what and they're not going to want to. It's easier to not be angry. It's easier to just push it out of the way, but that will just make the problems between you go on longer. So there are no, if I would take my exercise and game time, what is it? Games, play, and I would put it into support groups, 12-step meetings, educational groups, therapy. You're having a crisis. The other thing I thought about, I'm going to stop Tammy, was, and this is not a very nice image, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. To me, the level of what you're dealing with is not unlike you have a child and they become very sick and they're in the hospital and you don't know how that's going to go, if something bad's going to happen over time, if they're going to make it at all. That's what's happening in your life. The child that you created between the two of your relationship is in the hospital. And that's not the time to sit around and play fun and games. That's the time to to get education, to get support, to join parent support group, all that. So something has died. The intimacy, the love, the trust that you shared, it ain't coming back. Not in the way you've had it. Whatever the expectations were about your relationship, like, we'll always support each other, or I'll never go out in the world and hurt you, or I'll always have your back, or that's all gone. You know that you can go out now and cause your spouse harm, and so do they, and not think twice about it. That's not fun and games time. That's separate from each other in terms of your healing. And he or she, your partner, goes to get support for themselves and deal with what they're going through. You don't play any fun and games. You work with the other men about how serious this problem is. Or I have a great idea. I do 2-hour consultations. I just did one today with a couple, usually couples who are really disconnected from the meaning of what's happening, or they need me to help push forward the reality of what's happening, and also to give advice on what next steps they might take. And if you're interested in doing a consult with me, want to spend time with me, write to Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. I don't know if you want to say maybe just a moment or two about the consultations, because I love doing them. I really feel like I'm helping people not only with each other, but with their families, their children. So I'm going to actually run to the restroom real quick, but I would love if you would say something about the
While you do that,
consults.
I will share a bit about those. They are 2-hour expert consultations with Dr. Rob via Zoom. He does these with people all over the world, and so even if you're local to Los Angeles, they're still done via Zoom. And he's right that lots of people find hope, healing, validation, and I will also tell you that there are times when it's a matter of a partner going, oh, this person is not ever willing to do the work, and so I need to choose myself and my healthy boundaries over trying to fix a relate. You can't fix a relationship by yourself. So there are times when a partner will have validation that it is time for them to move on, because the addict is not willing to do the work that they need to do, and they are not going to choose to stay in a relationship where there's active addiction. So they all are different. These are all organic. People go, what happens? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm never in them. I get information afterwards. I hear from people, but I also am part of helping provide the resources as people come out of them. And here's the deal. There are couples that Dr. Rob makes recommendations for, and they choose to do nothing. They choose to stay in where they've been. So they
Up
get to
to them.
choose. Yeah, absolutely. But they at least have the information. He's a world-renowned expert. He teaches other therapists around the world how to do this work. So
Well,
if
and I
you
want to say one.
want things to change, you can.
Oh, I just want to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tammy. I wanted to say one more thing about consultations, which is that a lot of what I do is kick butt. A lot of what I do is spouse says, I don't know what to do. I don't think they're taking it seriously. They don't understand how much they have to do. They keep pushing me off. They keep making excuses. They don't understand what I've been through. Can you help guide me and us into taking serious steps toward healing, and not just sort of pushing the buttons? And so that is my job, is to be very clear, very serious, with really clear investigation, and then push toward what I'd recommend. And then you, as Tammy says, you do what you choose to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the next one is about disclosure, which you started. I'm a porn
Right.
addict, 2 months sober right now. I'm working with my therapist on the disclosure. I'm currently separated from my wife. What is your recommendation before official disclosure? Should we talk about my past, what I'm watching, doing, or keep it for disclosure? And I know you answered quite a bit of this. The
Can you give
only
me the timestamp? Just I've got so many
It's
questions here tonight.
5:05
Oh,
p.m.
okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So it's in the answer. So so you have a therapist. Hopefully, you both of you have a qualified therapist. This is what your therapist should be very clear about what the guidelines are for doing the formal therapeutic disclosure. But yes, you calling your wife right now and going, hey, I just want to let you know about some stuff. No, we actually ask people to take a pause, and like Dr. Rob was saying, partners will go, but I want to know, but I want to know, but I want to know. Yes, I know you want to know. I want to tell you, you deserve a formal therapeutic disclosure. I'm working on it with my qualified therapist. You're working on being prepared. So this is like one of those, do the work. I hope you've got a date set for it. And keep doing the work. We've got all of those resources on our website, that will help support you. And many, like I said, many therapists are recommending these things, including the online work groups for their clients because they make more progress with things. But, you're 2 months sober right now. Good. And hopefully you're doing the work on I work on my recovery on a daily basis. I'm not taking it for granted. So whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing the things that are esteemable, that will keep you on a recovery path, so that you aren't doing another formal therapeutic disclosure down the line. We hear of people that do that because they go, oh, got the disclosure behind me, now we're good, and then guess what, there's another one down the pike. So anything else to add to what you said before?
Well, I just would simply say that all of this needs to be guided and for both of you. And for example, and I'll just stop here, you're separated from your wife. If you do disclosure and she's comfortable with what you've said, do you move back in together? If what criteria, how does disclosure relate to that? Does she say I'll move, or he say I'll move back in with you as long as you tell me everything? I mean, there's a whole bunch of pieces flying around here. I am currently separated. That alone, I am 2 months sober. That's a deal. Disclosure is a little bit down the line. I would think you guys have some work to stabilize yourselves before you go back and look. Now, if you were living together and you were very dedicated to the relationship in the moment, and I was reassured that both of you were doing the work you would do, then we would plan for a disclosure plan, which means it could be 6 weeks, it could be 2 months. The spouses hate this because they have to sit and wait. But unfortunately, you really don't want a whole bunch of stuff that is leaving things out or that isn't said properly. So it does take time, but I don't hear we're doing this, and so how long should we take to do that because I'm doing this and she's doing that or whatever. It just feels like, oh, well, when should we do this? And I don't think it kind of works that way. You need a lot more guidance. And again, write
Yes.
Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. If nothing else, she'll point you to the podcasts that talk about this, to the
Yeah.
webinars. Yeah.
But you have a therapist. So like, if you've got a qualified therapist to do disclosure, you have a therapist that's telling you this is what the process is. So follow that guideline. Okay. So now we're going to go to 507 timestamp.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
that. I'm with you.
I would really, I would really like to know about how the period of abstinence works. Some places say it's necessary, other sources say it's optional. It must be agreed upon by both betrayed and betrayer. What if we cannot commit to 90 days? Can we do 30 days? My husband, the betrayer, is worried about his ability to make it past 30 days. Originally was in a hysterical bonding phase.
Right.
Now I'm in the phase where I really need a sex reset because it triggers intrusive visuals. I feel shame and anger and performative. This is from the partner, of course. So
Stop having sex. Stop having sex. Tammy, I've said this a million times. It'll be on my little stone when I'm gone, which is if you don't trust somebody, why would you have sex with them? And what I hear is, at least initially, this is bringing up all this kinds of fears and lack of safety and visual images and yeah, I mean, you are so not ready to be sexual as a partner. Now, I want to clarify. Well, I've been asked lots of questions in this one little thing. So let me say, I do think that a period of absence is very useful. I know I was asked to take it. It did not help me learn how to be more intimate with my partner. It did not help me learn how to have a better relationship. It taught me about my addiction. How did it express itself every day? What I was wearing, how I looked at people, the conversation I brought up, who I walked down the street. Everything was revealed to me because I realized I dressed a certain way, I acted a certain way, I talked a certain way, I took certain streets because I was active in my addiction. So for me personally, it was really helpful to take some time out. That doesn't mean your partner has to. They can be sexual with themselves. And I'm not saying that's comfortable, that's your choice, but I don't have to be avoiding sex completely because my addict partner needs to take a time out. So to me, that almost feels like a punishment, which is I can't be sexual, so you can't either in any way. It doesn't work that way. So partners haven't been acting out sexually. They have the right. Now, if they don't have to, and they may be going through trauma that leaves them wanting to stay as far away from sexuality as possible, that's fine. But what you choose to do in your recovery is not necessarily what your spouse has to do. And I am really worried about you, by the way. Um, What if we can't forget commit to 90 days? First of all, you can commit to 90 days. They can live somewhere else. As I say, many of the men I work with, you worried about having sex in the middle of the night or masturbating, put on a pair of pajamas, then put on another pair backwards, then put on a pair of shorts and tie knots in it. Believe me, by the time you get through all that, you'll realize that you're awake and you shouldn't be doing this. But what really worries me here is that your husband is worried about his ability to make it past 30 days. So that's not somebody who is at all in a place where they're ready to be intimate or physical with you. And by the way, I do hear a lot of men who are saying, well, I'll if we have more sex, I won't want to do this anymore, or I'll feel safe about our relationship. I've heard partners say, I'll feel closer to you or safer if we're being sexual. Feeling closer under these circumstances, feeling safer, those aren't things that sex brings. So my first thought is stop, regardless of what the addict is doing or not doing, because it's to the spouse, you don't feel safe and you don't feel comfortable and you're actually having trauma. It is a trauma response. Intrusive visuals is trauma. Shame, anger, and performative is trauma. So I strongly suggest that certainly if you're not in therapy, I really hope you do. Some of the things that Tammy's talking about, educate yourself, learn. This is a question I think that, Tammy, you help me if I understand this wrong, but these people have not worked around others who are dealing with this long enough. Like I wouldn't ask this question if I was going to Betrayed Partners group for a month or two, I would know. Or if I took the Betrayed Partners course, I would know already. So part of what I'm thinking is that maybe there's not as much of a commitment on both your sides to get involved in the recovery process. This is not a, I'm going to stop in a second. This question is not a no-brainer answer, but trust me, if both of you were really working on this, and especially you as a spouse were getting the support you need, why would you want to have sex with this person? And if you don't trust somebody, then you probably shouldn't have sex with them, whether you just met them or you've been with them 20 years. I don't get into bed with people I don't trust. I don't go on vacations with people I don't trust. Don't stop. And also don't worry about, you don't have to commit 90s. He does. But I am deeply worried about his recovery if he's saying he's not sure he can make it past 30 days. What is he doing? Who is he seeing? How is he managing that? Why is he scaring you with that information? What does it have to do with your anyway? There's lots of things I can say, but Tammy, I really want the spouse to take better care of themselves because I feel like he or she's putting themselves in situations that are really not good. They're asking a big question, but it's much more specific to where they're at. Um, Anything that you?
I concur. We have a residential treatment program for him. Like we do. That's this I'm going to change the context a little bit. Say he was an alcoholic. I can't, I'm really worried about making it past 30 days. A reminder for those of you that are raising your hands. We don't have people come on here live, so I'm lowering them. But so if he was an alcoholic, I get one day at a time, we choose not to drink. This isn't like 90 days and then click, on 91
Right.
days he gets to have sex. This is like on 91 days you can reevaluate. And Dr. Rob has shared, so I'm telling on him. But guess what? After his 90 days, he re-upped for another 90 days.
No, I was told to.
Oh,
I was told to, and
my
I did.
mistake. Well, okay, yeah, but
I'm not that good. I was
no, but
told.
I'm
My
saying,
sponsor
yeah,
said
okay, you re-upped, but I meant
yes.
you were, at another 90 days. And
I
you
did.
know what? Like, what I hear with this is your husband is all focused on sex, and literally it's absent. I'm just not doing whatever it is. But he's not focused on healing and recovery and really looking at, what's going on for him and why he perceives that is such a big need. It isn't like nothing's going to fall off if he doesn't have sex. It just doesn't. So,
It's true.
yeah. So I'm with Dr. Rob. This is way bigger. And, I don't hear good recovery work for the two of you. Okay. So now I'm going to jump to
And one more
511.
thing,
Go
this
ahead.
is so
Uh-huh.
much bigger than sex. The
Yeah.
issues that you're dealing with are so much bigger than sex. And by the way, addicts, They come to treatment, when can I have sex? Well, I know I want to work on this, but they're so focused on that as opposed to what kind of person I am. How am I treating people? What about lying and cheating and manipulating? What is the need to have sex all of a sudden? Believe me, the addicts had plenty. So I like the next one, Tammy.
What's the difference between high libido and sex addiction? My wife says that she has a high libido, but she will spend most of our time together engaging in self soothing activities, not involving me or things I'm trying to accomplish, or excessive napping. And then suddenly tells me it's time for us to have the sex. She's told me that in a good marriage, it is us having sex 3 times a week, if not daily. He doesn't seem to be interested in any sort of intimacy other than sexual. She says that the only time everything is right with the world is after we have sex. Is this high libido or sex addiction?
Um, I didn't. Okay, don't go away. She told me that
I'm
a
not
good
going
marriage is
away. I'm
having
looking
sex
for
3 times a
something. Yeah.
week, if not daily, but she doesn't seem interested in developing intimacy. It's interesting because this is usually what a woman will say.
I know. I was going to
Um,
say, doesn't this feel exactly like what we hear from betrayed
I could
partners,
see, yeah,
female?
my husband, and it would be the exact same story. So, I'm, as Tammy said, we can't make specific recommendations. We don't know you. We've never met you. I don't know what the issues are. But to me, this sounds like trauma. To me, this sounds like someone who's playing something out with you rather than being with you. Um, we do avoid intimacy and then we move towards sex to feel intimate and then we get scared and move away. So the pattern is very much like a sex addict. I don't know what that means. This is where you really need a professional evaluation because uh, what I hear, and I really appreciate a man saying this, I don't really feel safe having sex with you because it feels like that's one of the primary ways we connect. And I, just like many healthy people who are married, I don't want to just have sex with you. I want to spend time and be intimate and hold and have fun. And, sex is just a part of intimacy. And yeah, and a good marriage is not, let me just say this. I went to a therapist once myself because I was thinking, well, maybe I don't want enough sex, or maybe he doesn't want enough sex, or we're not matched in the same way. And the therapist said, you know what? There's no right or wrong. You have sex, you don't have sex. You have sex all the time, you have sex once a year. It doesn't matter. What matters is what brings health and happiness to the couple. So for her to say, well, it needs to be this often or that, well, it may not be for you, or it may be under certain circumstances. So there is no norm. There is no right or wrong. There are many couples who are very happy not having sex. There are couples who have to have sex every day. It doesn't matter. But when there is this disconnect, I say this, there can be a disconnect about how often. That's not a difficult thing to talk about, but the rest of it, the lack of intimacy, the lack of connection, the run. So high libido is not about we're distant, we're non-intimate, and we focus towards sex because she needs to have it. That's not a high libido. That's an intimacy disorder, trauma, sex addiction. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. And I appreciate your saying that something doesn't feel right to you. And to all of the people in the room, I want you to hear that men do think about these things, especially healthy men. We do think about, I don't feel connected. You know, if you're not 19, you might not want to have sex every day, but we do have feelings. We do think about relationship things. This man is troubled by his lack of intimacy and the drive for his spouse to be sexual. It isn't just women that this happens to. And it isn't just women who feel the pain of disconnection. And I think that's just important to note because not all of us are sex addicts. Tammy, we should maybe keep moving. I
Well,
do.
I just want the only I only want to add the when you talk about self-soothing activities not involving me, that like if it's always I'm off doing my own thing to self-soothe, that and I did put the self-assessment for sex addiction. I don't know, if that is, but that is the disconnect is like I'm over here doing all of my own things and I'm not connected with you in a real and meaningful way. And then I want to have sex. And now I'm connected. And then I'm going to go off and do all my things by myself. Dr. Rob did, as part of the webinars in early June of this year, so you can look at that on the previously recorded, he pulled up the top 15 things for intimacy. Guess what was not on the list? Sex. There was a list of all of these, terms and things that are interchanged with intimacy. It wasn't sex. So sex can be part of that, but if that's the only thing, and I hear you as the partner going like, wait, I'm not feeling connected. And it's more like, well, I need to do this, in order for us, for her to feel, like,
Right.
we're connected. So,
Right. Who am I doing this for? Because that is
right.
for my boundary, I'm not sexual unless I feel like it, not because I'm supposed to, not because my spouse asked for it, not because it's good for a marriage. I have to be comfortable with it, whether you're a man or a woman. And you don't sound comfortable with a whole bunch of things in this relationship. We kind of answered the next question, Tammy, but I think we should, if you want to touch
I
on it
know
again.
this tags back to the first question, and it was something that we were talking about. So I think
Okay.
it does need to be answered. So if
Okay,
straight
go
men
ahead.
enjoyed watching men have sex, could they watch this because they are acting out for their trauma reenactment? And you have talked about this in many different ways. Um, uh, but anyway, I have a thought on this, but I would like
Go
you
ahead,
to
Cami,
share.
go for it.
Well, because you have shared, if it's trauma reenactment, then it's once or twice. Like, this is my recollection, so correct me if I'm wrong, but because I usually am parroting Dr. Rob, but like, if it's trauma reenactment, it may be from a curiosity standpoint, and once or twice or whatever. And we were talking, I know at that time, with a man having sex with a man, from sexual abuse as a child or whatever, and they were like, well, it's trauma reenactment, they're not gay. And I'm not saying he's gay or not, but you were, I recall, saying, if it's a curiosity standpoint, once or twice, but if it's a arousal template, then that may, continue to keep happening. So that was what I was thinking, when I read this.
Um, uh, there's a lot here. Now we have a much more difficult question. Um, I have worked with men who were confused about what turned them on or not. They were turned on by men, but it didn't quite feel right to them. It didn't feel, now, I worked with a client recently who, it's awful. He was molested at 5, he was molested at 7, he was molested at 14. Once those things have happened to you, sometimes you're more vulnerable for a bunch of reasons. He was confused about his sexuality. It's not unusual for someone who's been molested or traumatized to enjoy it. The body responds, whether, depending on the circumstances. Doesn't mean they're necessarily interested in men, but a man turned him on, a man, whatever. So once you've had that experience and those experiences, it can be very confusing. And I've had men say, I don't feel like I'm intuitively and natively into men, but when I go to a dark place in my addiction, that's where I go. And so is it, but in some ways it doesn't matter, because the truth is he goes there and he does this and he's a sex addict. And so what's more important to me is, honestly, sobriety, healing. Say one more thing about this. It's not unusual for someone to come to Seeking Integrity, the treatment program, and say, I have sex with men, that must be my addiction, or I'm turned on by trans people, that must be my addiction, or they may be trauma issues, may be things that need to be worked on at a certain point. But the most important thing is that someone has a period of time of just not doing it. And then you can sit back and say, gee, I wonder why this. But when you're active in the addiction, it's all a big mess. So I don't remember exactly, but I don't think this person had a lot of sober time, if I remember correctly. So anyway,
Right.
and I'll say this to you in this way, what I say to the people in treatment. I could show you, because everybody wants to know why. Why do I do this? Why am I a sex addict? Why do I have these problems? Why? And what I'll say to them is I could take a reel, as we used to have, a movie of your life, and I could show you every single frame of anything that's ever happened to you, and you would still act out sexually. Because what you need to learn is how to not do it. What are the signs that you're going to do it? How do you manage it when you feel like it? Who do you talk to? Where do you get help? I need to learn how to stop doing something that may have been caused by trauma before I get into the trauma. I know a lot of clients, when they are doing trauma work and examining trauma, they're overwhelmed by that. Well, if you're a sex addict, a bad day will send you out there acting out. Working on trauma has to really be almost in order before you have stability in your sexual behavior. So um, I also wonder, and I want to ask Tammy, and I really want you to think about this, why this person's asking these questions. What does it mean to them? What are they trying to figure out about their spouse? Why do they need to figure this out? Um, I hear a lot of spouses say, well, what does this mean to you? What are you doing? Why do you do it? What matters to me is that you did it. that you left me 5 hours a week to look at porn. Whatever you're looking at, on some level, it doesn't matter. The point at the beginning, what matters is you're doing this. You need to learn how to stop doing this. I need to deal with my feelings about it. And I do worry when a spouse is doing this much investigation of an addict's behavior that maybe they're not where they need to be, which is they're too focused on him and not focused enough on themselves. Um, yeah, why is it so important to know if this turns him on or it doesn't? Your marriage is also already in tatters. So what difference does it make who or what turns him on? What matters is that you work through the situation you're in. And then, as we say in recovery, more will be revealed. You'll get more information as it goes along. So, and Tammy, I want to reinforce, I know you would say this, which is maybe your focus needs to be more on you and answering questions for yourself and coming to peace with what's happened. And then there are discussions. Besides, yeah, he's done enough talking. He's made enough excuses. You've had enough time to have to deal with him. Now you need to take care of you. And taking care of you is not focusing on what's going on with him or who he is. And you're not going to get the answer. Well, if he's gay, he doesn't want to. Oh, I got to say one more thing about gay. Um, gay is how you live. It's not just I have sex with men. Gay is my family know I'm involved with a man. I go to group, I go to hang out with other gay men. Gay is a way of living. It is not just who I'm attracted to. It is how I live my life. And so someone may have sex with men, but they're in a marriage and that's hidden. And that's not a gay person. That's someone who has sex with men. A gay person is someone who's accepted it. That's their primary desire. They grow a life around it. And that's how I think of being gay, not just who you have sex with. But anyway, let's keep going, Tammy.
Well,
We
so I want to
can't.
tag on to, well, no, I want to tag on to this because, we've talked before, it's a red herring of like who they're having sex with. It's they're acting outside the boundaries. Like the problem is the sexual acting out. Like who or what they're watching is of interest and would be part of what they can work on, in treatment or therapy or whatever. But this always feels like a fear of like, like I'm afraid
Right.
he's actually gay,
Or
and I
whatever.
think
Right.
and what Dr. Rob, said is important to take into consideration. Right now, you've got enough on your plate.
Right.
He's watching a whole bunch of porn that was
Right.
not agreed to, because if it was all okay, you wouldn't be on here. If you guys were like, oh, it's all fine. No, so he's got some issues around the pornography, and that's so stopping the problematic behavior, then addressing the underlying issues. And but his arousal template, like just because you have an arousal template towards this does not mean you have to act out on everything. Oh my goodness, otherwise we addicts would never stand a chance. So we learn to live in integrity. We learn to live in recovery. And I am with Dr. Rob, like really focus on what are your healthy boundaries? What are you doing to take care of you, partner, so that you are making progress on a path that is healing for you, regardless of what this person is doing. One more thing, Debbie Allen did a webinar in June of 2023, and she talked about the 3-circle plan for partners, and I loved it because for some partners, and 3-circle plans vary, addict to addict. Well, for partners, sometimes it could be that I'm putting the hyper focus on what my addict is doing or not
Right.
doing, or what happened, what could this mean. That might be an inner circle for partners to go, like, let's go back up 10,000 feet, and what do I need to do to take
Right.
care of me, so that I'm not dysregulated and worried about every little thing he's doing, and like I'm walking down the street going, like it's so dysregulating. So how do you get the help that you need? Again, Betrayed
Right.
Partner Work Group starts Wednesday.
I just want to add one more thing, Tammy. I know we need to stop, which is the more I think about this, the more I hear a partner who's in great pain, who's looking
Yes.
to see, well, is this why you did this? Or is this why you're not attracted to me? Or is this
Yes.
why you haven't been committed in our marriage? And understanding that is not going to help you. It happened. It is happening. How are you taking care of yourself? All the understanding in the world is not going to take away your pain. And I think this is very typical of a partner, which says, if I understand this, I know this, I know this, I will feel better. You're not going to feel better. Your life is, it's crazy. It's going to be crazy. It's crazy time for a reason. Everything's falling apart. So look for answers for yourself about how you can come to peace and stability and be connected as you go through this process. And it'll play out however it plays out over time. But finding the answer to this is not going to solve the problem. So Tammy, I love doing this. I wish we could do it all the time or do hours and hours, but I got to walk
Well,
my dog or bad things are going to happen in my
bad
house.
things are going to happen. So yeah, thank you all for being here, Dr. Rob. Thank you as always. So again, special edition tomorrow afternoon with Angela Spearman. That's a non-typical webinar time, so we invite you to join us. It's on the seekingintegrity.com site, and we've got lots of special events, so check out the calendar. Bye, everyone. Thank you,
See
Dr. Rob.
y'all.
Bye.